This is my part 2 of my showcase for The Mandalorian Season 2. Now I've spent a ridiculous amount of time making all of these minifigures and this video, so I'd appreciate it if you dropped a like and subscribed. Without further ado, let's get into the showcase. So, this is of course Dinjaran, or the Mandalorian, the main character of The Mandalorian. I actually did this minifigure twice. The first time I didn't really like how it turned out, and so I decided to do it again, and this one just looks so much better, and you'll see the first one later. So obviously the helmet was the first part I did, like with all of my minifigures, and I just started by engraving the visor, which is something I hadn't tried before, but I think it looks nice. I then didn't do much sculpting, I just did the band across the top of his helmet, and then the pieces around the ears. This is my helmet from my normal Mandalorian from the start of Season 1 on this minifigure, and it looks a bit strange on this one, so I'm glad I went with this style for this second one. Now we come to the arms, which are the one part in this minifigure which I'm not entirely happy with how they turned out. I just think they could have been a bit more detailed. But basically I just sculpted on some bits at the top for the shoulders, and then the gauntlets down the bottom as well, then the tan and the blue triangle on the hands for his armour on his hands as well. Then I didn't bother making a new disruptor for him. The only accessory I made for him was this Beskar spear, which he gets in episode 5 of The Mandalorian from Ahsoka. And then here he is with a disruptor, because I'd already made 2 of them, so I didn't want to make a third, so that's just an old one which I made. Now we come to the most fun part of this minifigure to make, which is the torso. So I just started by sculpting some things onto the front and the back, and then I decided I would make this cape. So this is just a normal black cape, and then I just added a few things and made it a bit more tattered. Then you can see wrapping around the whole thing, there's actually his ammo belt, which is some electrical tape painted up in brown with some things on it for the actual ammunition, and I think that looks really well. And it actually wraps around his whole torso. It's not just one piece on the front and the back, it actually goes over his shoulder, which I thought was a really nice detail. On the back he also does have a magnet embedded into the back of his armour, which is really useful because it means I can attach a jetpack and also his disruptor blaster, depending on how I want to display him. We then finally come to the legs, which are just some Lego brown legs with some sculpting on it for the armour. I really like how the armour came out. I don't know what it is, it just seems to be so much better than my old one. And then there's also some things around the outside, like his ammo, and then I've just got a silver line painted around the bottom, like the bottom of his boots. Here's a look at him compared to my old Mandalorian in Beskar, and here's a look at him compared to my new Mandalorian from the start of Season 1, and then here he is next to Baby Yoda. So here we have the minifigure which started this whole showcase, Ahsoka Tano. As soon as I heard that Rosario Dawson was going to be playing Ahsoka Tano in the Season 2 of The Mandalorian, I got the idea for this showcase, so this whole project would not have been a thing without her. On a side note, I just think that Ahsoka was portrayed perfectly by Rosario Dawson. I couldn't have hoped for anything better in episode 13 of The Mandalorian. So, starting with her arms, you can see she's got part of the things from her Mandalorian outfit, and then some things from her old Padawan outfit, which is really nice. You can see the gauntlets on her from Mandalore, and then the little triangle brown design, which she had from when she was a Padawan, and then has painted up some things on her hands for her gauntlets. Now I feel the next bit is quite controversial, but this is the Montreal and Leiku. Now, Ahsoka's Montreal and Leiku in live action were quite strange. They weren't exactly the same as in the Clone Wars or in Rebels. And this is obviously because it was live action. They actually had to think about how the character would be able to move, whereas the other one was just animated. but I went for the original design, how I think it really should have been. I don't mind the version they went for in The Mandalorian, but I just went for the pointy look which we all know and love for my minifigure, as I think it looks better. You can also see here I also painted her face. Now I've only tried painting heads for 2 other minifigures before, so I'm really happy with how this turned out. I think you can tell at least that it's Ahsoka Tano, even if it's not the most accurate thing ever, but I still do really like how that turned out. Now we come to the torso and legs of this minifigure, which is basically just fabric painted up in grey, and then with some electrical tape around the middle painted brown for the belt. On the front of the belt there's a buckle made out of a small magnet which I use for lots of other details on my minifigures, like for attaching the jetpack to my Mandalorian earlier. And then beside that there's a little canister which I believe is ammunition, and that's just made out of some Lego plastic from a plant piece. And she does actually have 2 of those canisters on her on the real thing, but I just went for 1 because I didn't want it to look too crowded. I then just painted the orange shoulders on her back, then I used black to do some outlining and also for some creases on her robes. Then I've just got her next to some of my other Ahsokas. This is my new Season 7 Ahsoka and a Season 3 Padawan Ahsoka which I'm working on at the moment. Here we have Bo-Katan, and when I saw Bo-Katan in episode 3 of The Mandalorian, I was so happy. She was so cool, and I just loved that the person who actually was a voice actor for Bo-Katan in Rebels and the Clone Wars was actually her actor in real live action, so I think that was just really cool. Now, I did make a video on making this minifigure, but since I've adopted some new techniques, and I've also acquired some new materials, so I've updated it since that video. Now, the helmet was a particular pain, especially with the sculpting, because the Night Owl's helmets are not like normal Mandalorian helmets. They have a completely different shape around the cheek area, so I spent a long time sculpting that. I then just did some simple painting and getting the visor the right shape, because obviously Bo-Katan's visor is not like the normal male Mandalorian visor. On her back you can see she's got a jetpack, and that's just a normal Lego jetpack painted silver with some gold details. You can see however I did put a magnet in it, as well as on the back of her torso, so it can be removed from her torso easily and doesn't make her head get pushed up by the normal bracket piece usually used by Lego. Both of the arms are basically the same, apart from one of them does have the Night Owl symbol, which I tried to do to the best of my ability. I do realise that both of the shoulders do have the Night Owl symbol, but I really couldn't be bothered to try and do it again on the other shoulder, so I just kept it like this. You can also see on the arms there's just a bit of simple sculpting for her armour. Her accessories are just some custom West Stars which I made, painted up in silver. Now the torso was a new challenge again, as I have never sculpted female Mandalorian armour before, but I think it turned out pretty well and quite accurate. And then obviously on the back you saw the magnet as well for the jetpack earlier. The hip piece was pretty simple, just added a few pouches with some Lego plastic from a visor piece. And then you can see just some simple detail on the legs, along with some sculpted bits on the boots and also around the thighs. Here's a quick shot of her beside Mando, and a shot of her beside Ahsoka. Now for the final minifigure in this whole showcase, this is Cobb Vance from episode 1. Now this is a really fun minifigure to make, and maybe this is just because I like Boba Fett. He's obviously wearing Boba Fett's armour. I did make a video on making this minifigure, so make sure you check that out, linked in the description. So I started with this helmet which I'd already made for a Boba Fett minifigure I was planning, and I just added some battle damaging. It's a pretty simple sculpt, with just some simple sculpt around the visor, a dent inside the helmet around the top, and then a rangefinder added on to the top with a magnet, which I think looks really nice, and it can obviously be moved or removed completely if you want. The torso armour sculpt was not too hard in this minifigure. I did balloon it out a bit though, just because I thought that would look better. On his back he does, once again, like all the other Mandos, have a jetpack which can be removed with a magnet. Then he's got his back torso armour there as well, with the other magnet embedded into it. It is Boba Fett's jetpack, painted up the same how it would have been, but I just put a lot of battle damaging on and things. I didn't extend the rocket, even though that's what Boba Fett's jetpack really should have, but I think it still looks good. His arms are pretty simple. I just used some canned metal for his shoulder pieces, some wire for some of the tubing going around, and then some clay for his gauntlets. And his hands are just plain black hands with nothing special on them at all. Finally we come to his legs. I did some simple sculpting with that yellow pieces on his knee, and then I obviously put that little strap going from his waist around to his holster on the side of his leg. And finally here's a shot of him next to Mando. So that was my The Mandalorian showcase. If you enjoyed this video, please do check out my part 1 of the showcase and all my other videos related to this showcase. So thank you for watching, make sure you subscribe to see more reviews, mocks and more, and goodbye.